Good afternoon, and welcome to a webinar on problems with data integrity hosted by EAS Consulting Group and presented by EAS independent consultant Brian Needle. EAS specializes in FDA regulatory matters with a prime focus of assisting domestic and foreign food, pharmaceutical, dietary supplement, medical device, cosmetics, and tobacco firms comply with applicable laws and regulations. EAS is staffed with former FDA compliance and inspection officials and industry executives, and is assisted by an extensive network of consultants with many years of FDA and industry experience. Today's presenter is Brian Needle. Brian works with domestic and international clients on matters of FDA compliance and good manufacturing practices as they relate to pharmaceuticals, including OTCs, prescription, and APIs. Mr. Needle conducts quality-based audits, mock FDA inspections, and assists with FDA 483 warning letter remediation and responses, as well as general quality system CAPAs. Mr. Needle has been a consultant since 2012, with prior careers at both FDA and industry. He was the Senior Director of U.S. Quality and Compliance and GMPs at Sanofi Aventis, and Senior Compliance Manager, Corporate Quality and Compliance at Forest Laboratories. Mr. Needle also worked as a compliance officer and investigator at FDA's Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. As a reminder, during the webinar, you may ask any questions by typing them into the questions box. And with that, I will say thank you for joining EAS, and I'll turn the presentation over to Brian.
A firm is placed on the import alert list, you may have to stop manufacturing, recall your products, train all your employees, validate your manufacturing processes, validate your testing methods, and requalify your equipment. You also may be required to hire consultants. This will cost you millions of dollars and can take several years to restart your production. You will not obtain any new NDA or ANDA approvals, and you will not be able to submit any changes to your already approved applications. Your stock price will go down. You may lose your customers, and you may even have to close your facilities. 21 CFR Part 11, Electronic Records and Electronic Signatures. I've given you the URL there in blue, so you could click on that and get directly to the regulations. They seem simple, but they're not as simple as they may appear. They're not that long, but a lot of the concepts in there may be new to some people who are not really, IT or computer people. It's included in Title 21, Food and Drugs. And again, the name is Part 11, Electronic Signatures and Electronic Records. This is exactly what it says in the regulations. I'm not going to read through those. That's available for you to read when you click on that website. I'm just going to skip through that quickly. There's another a draft guidance that FDA put out. This is on slide number 7. The URL is on the top there. For some reason it changed from the blue color. And that's helpful in understanding some of the concepts in the guidance. I just wrote a little bit from the beginning of that guidance. The purpose of this guidance is to clarify the role of data integrity in current good manufacturing practice for drugs as required in 21 CFR Parts 210 and 211. 210, 211, and 212, excuse me. Part 210 covers current good manufacturing practice in manufacturing, processing, packing, or holding of drugs in general. That's the definitions and things like that. That's really not the regulations. It's the things that you basically, the assumptions that you agree on and the definitions, and also talks about FDA's authority. Part 211 is the one that we really focus on, and that covers the current good manufacturing practice for finished pharmaceuticals. This guidance provides the agency's current thinking on the creation and handling of data in accordance with CGMP requirements. The definition used in the guidance is data integrity refers to completeness, consistency, and accuracy of data. Complete, consistent, and accurate data should be attributable, legible, contemporaneously recorded, original or a true copy, and accurate. And the acronym for that is ALCOA. That's a good way to remember it. And you'll see that in a lot of these, training courses and webinars and other conferences where they discuss that. And that, like the contemporaneously recorded part, I've spent a lot of times most of my career auditing facilities, and people are not supposed to, they're supposed to write things down at the time that they do them. And sometimes you'll see people using the yellow sticky notes or just a piece of scrap paper to write down their results, and then they'll transfer it into their laboratory notebook. Or if they have electronic data, they hopefully shouldn't have the reason to do that. But you'd be surprised. Everybody's worried about getting an out of specification result, and so they don't want to write anything in their notebook until they know everything is perfect, and that's wrong. So please don't do that. Write things down when they happen, and you can end up getting in a lot of trouble with FDA if you're not writing down the data as it's generated. FDA expects that data to be reliable and accurate. CGMP regulations and guidance allow for flexible and risk-based strategies to prevent and detect data integrity issues. Firms should implement meaningful and effective strategies to manage their data integrity risks. This should be based upon the process understanding and knowledge management of technologies and business models. In recent years, FDA has increasingly observed CGMP violations involving data integrity during inspections. This is troubling because ensuring data integrity is an important component of industry's responsibility to ensure the safety, efficacy, and quality of drugs, and of FDA's ability to protect the public health. Before I turn to the next slide, I'm on slide 10 now. I just wanted to let everybody know, nowhere in this regulation does it say you have to use electronic data. A lot of people get confused with that and think that this regulation requires them to use electronic data. That's incorrect. If you use paper batch records, paper documentation system, paper SOPs, that's fine. There's no requirement that you have to use electronic data and or electronic signatures. These regulations apply if you do use electronic data and electronic signatures, then you must follow all of these regulations. These data integrity-related CGMP violations have led to numerous regulatory actions, including warning letters, import alerts, and consent decrees. The underlying premise in 210.1, 212.2 is that CGMP sets forth minimum requirements to assure that drugs meet the standards of the FD&C Act regarding safety, identity, strength, quality, and purity. Electronic signature and record-keeping requirements are laid out in 21 CFR Part 11. They apply to certain records subject to records requirements set forth in the agency regulations, including Parts 210 and 211. The guidance outlines FDA's current thinking regarding the narrow scope and application of Part 11, pending FDA's re-examination of Part 11 as it applies to all FDA-regulated products. That re-examination is when they initially made this regulation official, industry was really not ready to deal with this new technology. And so what FDA did was they used what they call enforcement discretion, and they backed off on enforcing these regulations because of all the complaints about people in industry not being ready. So after some period of time, they came out with this guidance, and then they then said, all right, now we're going to start enforcing it. You should be up to speed with the data integrity regulations, and you should have compliant software and hardware systems. And then they started enforcing it again. So that's just a little bit of the history. Again, you go through data integrity refers to the following attributes of data: completeness, consistency, and accuracy. Metadata is the contextual information required to understand data. A data value by itself is meaningless without additional information about the data. Metadata is often described as data about data. Metadata is structured information that describes, explains, or otherwise makes it easier to retrieve, use, or manage data. For example, the number 23 is meaningless without metadata, such as an indication of the unit mg for milligram. Among other things, metadata for a particular piece of data could include date/timestamp for when the data were acquired, user ID of the person who conducted the test or analysis that generated the data, instrument ID used to acquire the data. Okay, audit trail. This is very important. Data should be maintained throughout the record's retention period. This should be done with all associated metadata requirements to reconstruct the CGMP activity. The relationships between data and the metadata should be preserved in a secure and traceable manner. Audit trail means a secure, computer-generated, time-stamped electronic record. This record should allow for reconstruction of the course of events relating to the creation, modification, or deletion of an electronic record. An audit trail is a chronology of the record: who, what, when, and why. For example, the audit trail for a high-performance liquid chromatography run could include the username, date, time of the run, the integration parameters used, and details of a reprocessing, if any. Change justification for the reprocessing. Electronic audit trails include those that track creation, modification, or deletion of data, such as processing parameters and results, those that track actions at the record or system level, and such as attempts to access the system or rename or delete a file. So you should think twice if you're using electronic records before you enter a system and try to make some changes if you're not an authorized user of the system. There will be records of that, and someone can and will find out that an unauthorized user attempted to access the system. You should not be able to access the system because everyone should have a unique password. For several years now, here, 5 things, excuse me, I didn't read the top title. 5 things to know about data integrity. For several years now, data integrity violations have been the main reason why the Food and Drug Administration has issued warning letters to pharmaceutical manufacturers, and in 2015, there was no exception. Regulators continue to identify the same shortcomings. In fact, for the last 15 years, regulatory agencies have cited the same deficiencies related to data integrity and data management. Yet it appears that the industry as a whole has made limited progress in self-identifying and remediating these deficiencies. In an effort to demonstrate the recurring pattern, FDA observations that were listed in 2015 warning letters were tabulated in 2015. There are 5 questions that the management of every pharmaceutical company needs to ask itself and take remedial action in order to consistently do well in regulatory inspections. Are you duplicating your test efforts? Our tabulation observed that companies which get warning letters are duplicating efforts. Since duplication of activities adds to cost of manufacturing a unit, is it worth asking why companies need multiple testing of the same product? Is duplication done because there is a lack of confidence in the manufacturing process? Could this be the reason why test or trial injections are performed to ensure the actual result will pass when GMP documents have to be completed? Or could it be there is a big gap between the commitments made to regulatory authorities and the actual process being performed on the shop floor? If your company is making these mistakes, look at how to reduce duplication of activities. Elimination of duplication improves compliance and also brings about cost efficiencies. Does your company lack real-time documentation? Several companies that faced regulatory action last year did not document operations in real time. Why go through the added effort to duplicate documentation once the activity has been completed? Are the questions which need to be answered the same as those for duplicate testing? Is it also a possibility that companies are not manufacturing the product, but only manufacturing paper? Do you have problems configuring audit trails? Problems with audit trail configuration was the most frequent observation made by the FDA. Interestingly, the observation was made across brands of software and equipment, reinforcing the fact that the problem has more to do with improper setup than access to the appropriate solution. The right configuration is important to track audit history, especially in organizations with multiple operators and administrators. How should companies configure audit trail functions in any software used to acquire data that can impact product quality? This is definitely an area that companies need to address. 4. Are you getting to the root of quality failures? In many cases where products routinely failed quality standards, the FDA inspectors found the firms had not conducted thorough investigations to get to the root cause of the problem. Do companies differentiate between a one-off product quality problem coming from the manufacturing line and a recurring process failure with the potential of dispatching a contaminated product to the market? Without a thorough investigation that gets to the root cause of failing a quality standard, no company can hope to be GMP compliant. Number 5, have your employees been adequately trained for inspections? When inspectors arrive on site, panic creeps in. That's a common observation, and employees definitely need training to handle regulatory inspections. However, before you begin training employees for rigorous interviews from inspectors, check if your training procedures are effective, whether or not your GMP procedures are overly complicated, and if employees are following common unwritten practices. Lack of proper employee training can be detrimental to the image of your company, as employees often end up giving ill-informed answers to inspectors. Remember, regulators are just doing their job. They have a governing body to answer to. They will report issues they find weighty and incompliant to GMP and quality norms. Current regulatory agencies' focus. There is an increase in health authorities' observations and actions pertaining to data integrity. Data integrity denotes the quality and accuracy of data over the entire life cycle. FDA warning letters and import alerts, EU non-compliance reports, and WHO decertifications. These are some of the things that are happening when regulatory agencies can definitely confirm that you had problems with data integrity. The current culture can influence the understanding or meaning of integrity. Noble quality culture can compensate for weak systems. Poor data integrity can be considered an illness A comprehensive plan could recommend the necessary corrections. Data integrity can be considered a design problem. Fear or the desire to make a batch pass can lead to data integrity difficulties. These difficulties can be a life cycle problem. All persons in an organization must understand the importance of data integrity and the significance of their specific roles. Supervisors, managers, directors, vice presidents, and presidents must understand the importance of supervising the entire manufacturing process. Many people may consider the root cause of a problem is equipment malfunction or human error. A comprehensive root cause analysis should be conducted before incorrect assumptions are made. You must also consider the fact that there could be multiple root causes for a problem. Data integrity as defined by MHRA, I believe they changed their name. That's the regulatory authority in the United Kingdom. They're now just MRA. July 2016, the MHRA released a draft document titled MHRA GXP Data Integrity Definitions and Guidance for Industry. It is a glossary of data integrity terms where the definitions are further explained with some context to aid in applying the existing regulations available. This is an update to their guidance released in March 2015. While they have not redefined data integrity, there are some differences to note. The guidance relates heavily to building your data integrity environment with a practical risk-based approach to the data collected, whether electronically or manually. It refers frequently to ICH Q9 quality risk management as a practical approach to determining the effort required in applying data governance restrictions. There is also an emphasis on the design of the controls to support data quality and integrity. The idea of data integrity, quality by design, is something that aligns with the ISPE GAMP5 system validation process and the PICS PE009 Annex 15 qualification and validation. In order to apply the regulations appropriately, the organization must understand the data required, collection system and processing, criticality to the patient, risk of data tampering, controls required. Each of the requirements should be documented and risk assessed before implementing a system. The validation provides an ideal framework for documenting the data integrity life cycle. GMP facility deadline. The guidance places a lot of emphasis on metadata integrity, and two sections highlight the importance of user identification and data change controls restrictions. Computerized system, user access system, administrator roles. While hybrid systems are accepted if they provide the adequate level of control, it is expected that GMP facilities whose hybrid system does not meet the requirements for data integrity should update their system by the end of 2017. And I'll explain briefly what a hybrid system is. A hybrid system is a combination of a paper documentation system combined with an electronic system. So basically what they're saying is, like I explained before, when they first came out with this new regulation, people had problems changing over and complying with this regulation if they were already using electronic data and electronic signatures. So they started switching their systems over, and they were still part paper-based and part electronic systems. And so now they're saying that you shouldn't be doing that anymore. Either you have a fully electronic system or you simply use data. You can't really have a paper documentation system combined with an electronic system and accurately keep records that way. Current thinking. The guidance does not report any major revelations or changes to DI or definitions they have not already discussed in recent times. The simple matter is data integrity is still a hot topic because the regulators are still discussing it. It is still the cause of an increasing number of regulatory citations over the last 5 years. There were only 2 citations in 2010, and then there were 10 in 2014. It went to 17% of warning letters in 2014 and 30% of warning letters in 2015. Failures were predominantly in almost all API warning letters in 2015. And I mean failures with following data integrity regulations. Here's an example of a warning letter that was issued to a company that had problem with data integrity. Failure to maintain complete data derived from all laboratory tests conducted to ensure compliance with established specifications and standards. Failure to investigate and document out-of-specification results. Failure to include adequate documentation during complaint investigation. 4, failure to record activities at the time they are performed. Here's another example from a warning letter. Our inspection revealed that your firm selectively omitted CGMP records directly related to the testing and manufacturing of your products. You're responsible for the accuracy and integrity of the data generated by your firm. A firm must maintain all raw data generated during each testing and manufacturing operation, including graphs, charts, and spectra from laboratory instrumentation. You must properly identify these records to demonstrate that each release batch was manufactured in accordance with validated parameters, was tested appropriately, and met release specifications. Your firm's executive management is responsible for ensuring the quality and safety of your products. Implementing adequate controls and systems to prevent omission and manipulation of laboratory data is at the foundation of fulfilling this critical responsibility. The above examples raise serious concerns regarding the integrity, reliability, and accuracy of the data generated and available at your facility. In your response to this letter, provide a comprehensive evaluation of the extent of the omission, deletion, and destruction of records, a risk assessment regarding the potential impact on the quality of products, and a comprehensive corrective and preventative action plan. Your response should include a summary of your investigation into missing, inaccurate, or unreliable test results with a description of the findings. Your investigation should assess the impact of these and any similar incidents on the quality of the drug products produced with your APIs, and should describe the steps that will be taken to prevent these fundamental breaches of data integrity and management oversight in the future. Your plan, this is another example from a different warning letter. Your plan should also ensure that controls are put in place that are sufficient to prevent omissions of data and prevent unauthorized changes to existing data. Any changes to data should only occur in strict accordance with approved established procedures. And the date of change, identity of person who made the change, and an explanation or reason for the change should always be recorded. Your firm also needs to improve its procedures for analyzing complaints, handling out-of-specification results, and assuring effectiveness of corrections following investigations into deviations and OOS results. Accordingly, you should include a detailed description of your plan to implement a robust quality system in your response to this letter. This remediation plan should describe the broader steps taken to ensure direct and effective corporate oversight of the quality operations functions of this facility. This system should ensure sustainable compliance with CGMP including the basic capability to prevent data manipulation and destruction or deletion of records. Your plan should also describe your commitment, procedures, actions, and controls to ensure data integrity generally. This plan should describe the corrective actions implemented to ensure that all managers, supervisors, and quality unit personnel are properly trained in detecting a lack of data integrity and data manipulation. The investigation should provide detailed descriptions of any other incidents where your quality unit failed to ensure proper testing of any materials and should include a retrospective review of all test results generated by your laboratory personnel. We acknowledge that you are committed to hiring a third-party auditor with experience in detecting data integrity problems to assist you with this evaluation and to assist with your overall compliance with CGMP. Your data integrity consultant should, I just skipped on. Finally, in response to this letter, you should also provide a list of all the batches of APIs in distribution and those intended to be shipped to the U.S. market that relied upon missing, inaccurate, or unreliable test data. The deviations cited in this letter are not intended to be an all-inclusive list of deviations that exist at your facility. When you are responsible for investigating and determining the causes of the deviations identified above and for preventing their recurrence and the occurrence of other deviations. I'm just going to skip this one. Some of them are similar. This one's more specific to HPLC on the issues here. I'm just going to read the last part on slide 34. In addition to the examples above, our inspection found that 2,803 of 44,643 injection results were not processed or reported in the official data folder for dissolution analysis via HPLC. Our inspection identified numerous examples of trial injections for various drug products, which suggests that this is a common practice. Your response to our findings of trial injections attempts to explain the rationale for retesting. You state that the unknown were intermittent spikes resulting in aberrant chromatography caused by electronic disturbance or pressure fluctuation. Your subsequent investigation into the observation concluded that the unknown impurity peak is not characteristic of the product and was not observed in the analysis of all commercial and exhibit batches. The fact that you did not observe the peak in commercial and exhibit batches does not justify disregarding the test run or failing to follow up with appropriate corrective actions and preventative actions. Your firm failed to exercise appropriate controls over computer or related systems to assure that only authorized personnel institute changes in master production and control records and other records. Your firm failed to establish and follow appropriate written procedures designed to prevent objectionable microorganisms in drug products not required to be sterile. Your firm failed to follow written procedures applicable to the quality control unit, and your quality control unit failed to review and approve all drug product production and control records to determine compliance with all established, approved written procedures before a batch is released or distributed. The foregoing examples are of serious CGMP violations demonstrating that your quality system does not adequately ensure the accuracy and integrity of the data generated at your facility to ensure the safety, effectiveness, and quality of the drug products you manufacture. We found that your quality system failed to ensure the adequate investigation and resolution of quality failures. ARPL failed to investigate OOS results, failed to contemporaneously document failures and report failures, and selected only passing results without the oversight of a quality unit. In your response and in subsequent communications with the agency, You indicated that you interviewed employees and found no evidence of data manipulation or deletion. In focusing on the issues of deletion and alteration of data, you have not sufficiently addressed or resolved other substantial issues, as discussed above. In response to this letter, include the specific requests noted above and provide the following to the agency. We also recommend that you contact the FDA, that's the headquarters phone number in Silver Spring, with 5 days of receipt of this letter to schedule a regulatory meeting. That means the company's in big trouble if FDA is telling them to schedule a regulatory meeting. Hopefully you won't have to participate in any meetings like that because you know to follow the regulations. This letter was mailed in June 2016. The warning letter summarizes significant deviations from current good manufacturing practices for active pharmaceutical ingredients. This statement in the second bullet point on slide 38 is usually stated in all warning letters. Because your methods, facilities, or controls for manufacturing, processing, packing, or holding do not conform to CGMP, your APIs are adulterated within the meaning of Section 501(a)(2)(b) of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. Failure to prevent unauthorized access or changes to data, and failure to provide adequate controls to prevent manipulation and omission of data. Our investigators' review of the audit trail for the residual solvent stability testing indicated that an analyst manipulated your computerized gas chromatography system to falsify residual solvent stability results for multiple batches distributed in the U.S. During the inspection, FDA's investigators discovered a lack of basic laboratory controls to prevent changes to and deletions from your firm's laboratory stored data. Your firm relied on incomplete and falsified records to evaluate the quality of your drugs and to determine whether your drugs conformed with established specifications and standards. Our investigator found that your firm failed to prevent data manipulation on multiple computerized analytical systems. Your firm retested samples without justification and deleted raw analytical data from computerized systems. You are responsible for determining the causes of these deviations, for preventing their recurrence, and for preventing other deviations from CGMP. Our investigators' review of the audit trails for the high-performance liquid chromatography system indicated that just prior to completion of certain stability analyses, you aborted the ongoing test to prevent your HPLC system from recording some assay and impurities test data. Failure to document manufacturing operations at the time they are performed. Your response was inadequate. Neither revised templates and procedures nor retraining your staff alone can prevent operators from continuing to falsify batch manufacturing records. Conclusions. I'm not going to read this one. This last paragraph, they pretty much say in all warning letters that you're responsible for correcting all your problems, not just the ones cited on the warning letter. After you receive this warning letter, you have 15 days to respond to this office in writing, specifically what you have done since our inspection to correct your deviations. I'm going to skip most of this part of the last paragraph, and I'm just going to read the highlighted part, the bold print at the end. We strongly recommend that you retain a qualified consultant to assist in your remediation. In response to this letter, provide the following. FDA, this is another one. Because of the findings of the FDA inspection described in this letter, your firm was placed on import alert. Until you completely correct all deviations and we confirm your compliance with CGMP, FDA may withhold approval of any new applications or supplements listing your firm as an API manufacturer. Failure to correct these deviations may also result in FDA continuing to refuse admission of articles manufactured at that address in the United States. Under the same authority, articles may be subject to refusal of admission in that the methods and controls used in their manufacture do not appear to conform with CGMP within the meaning of Section 501A2B of the FD&C Act. Okay, this company, I don't like putting names of companies in my presentations. These are just some quotes I saw from some articles. This company, back on FDA's import alert list. Just when it seemed this company was getting its compliance act together and putting its problems behind it, its bulk manufacturing, bulk drug facility got placed on its red list. The bulk drug division is the latest to join FDA's import alert list with X number of units already on the list. While your site recently said it had received establishment inspection reports for the facilities with observations, it also mentioned the receipt of establishment inspection reports does not materially change the status of import alert for the concerned manufacturing units for the U.S. market. The bulk drug facility had received an EU written confirmation from the Indian Central Drug Authority. Recent news about FDA 483 observations. The observations listed on the form highlight concerns which had not previously been reported. This company not only failed to mention the presence of an analytical laboratory, which was only discovered later, they deleted analytical raw data, and the inspectors found many original documents in the company's waste area. Multiple instances where samples were failing specifications and reported as passing have also been cited. This one was from August 21st, 2016. Making a unit CGMP compliant is time consuming. Thinks the remediation process at facilities as a time-consuming process as it aims to bring at least one of its plants to conform to current manufacturing practice regulations in the current fiscal year. For this other plant, which is under the US FDA scanner for violations of CGMP, the company faced anticipated supply constraints and delays in product approvals driven by CGMP compliance remediation effort. This impacted our U.S. revenues for the year. We expect to eventually resolve this in the future. However, this did not deter us from continuing to invest heavily in building the specialty business in the United States. The drug major continues to invest significant time and resources in ensuring that it remains committed to 24/7 CGMP compliance. Mitigating the risks of error. These are not errors. These are intentional changes to the data. The use of an electronic data system that is adequately validated according to 21 CFR Part 11 will prevent workers from being able to make these changes through the audit trail function of a compliance system. The importance of following good data integrity procedures needs to be instilled in everyone involved with manufacturing at each of your facilities. This should be done with training, which conveys the strongly worded message regarding the negative consequences regarding falsifying data. Increasing reporting efficiency. It is only through adequate training on well-written SOPs and the threat of termination that will teach workers of the serious consequences of data falsification. Many laboratories are afraid to report OOS results due to the fear of termination. You must instruct your laboratory personnel, QA, and operating staff that they will not be punished for reporting OOS results. Manufacturing and testing personnel should be taught to report these OOS results to their direct supervisor. How automation can help in structured reporting. The use of fully electronic document systems which are compliant with 21 CFR Part 11 will prevent your personnel from changing results because of the required audit trail functions. If you need assistance, FDA's enactment of Part 11 has created an entirely new business. This new business are all of these new companies whose consultants specialize in compliance with 21 CFR Part 11. How automation can help in structured reporting. Please be careful about companies who sell hardware and software that claim to be in compliance with 21 CFR Part 11. These claims may simply be marketing tools. These electronic systems must be validated at your facility with your computers. Reduction in human error. A reduction in human errors can be caught by continuous quality improvement procedures such as right first time or first time right. Since there is not enough time for these continuous quality improvement programs in today's presentation, please inquire about these another time. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. We have time for just a couple questions, and we have one that has come in, which is, where should a company start to assess an audit of their data integrity?
Well, a lot of times it's the laboratory where the data integrity is coming from, the quality control testing, and that's the data that's being generated, which you're going to get out of specification results. It doesn't mean there's a problem. They need to be investigated. So typically it's the quality control laboratory where you're going to have problems with data integrity, and that's where you should start any sort of program to look into preventing this data integrity problem.
And we'll just wait another couple seconds. Okay, here's the next one. What measures needed to be taken to ensure copy control of printed forms, etc.?
Well, sometimes people should not have the ability to just simply print off as many copies as they needed. I've seen companies where they may actually stamp copies of things as soon as they're printed off of a copy machine or off of a computer, and they'll stamp the date, and they may even have people put their initials on there. That's a way to prevent people from doing that. And you could also have written procedures where only a supervisor can print certain documents, and nobody else is allowed access to that.
Okay, thank you. We'll wait just another couple of seconds, see if any other questions come in. Another one here, as long as we have it defined in a procedure, is that acceptable? Continuing with the copy question.
As long as your procedure complies with current good manufacturing practices. Just because you have a written procedure doesn't mean your written procedure is written in accordance with the appropriate regulations. And for example, some companies call things like planned deviations, which to me is like an oxymoron, two words that are opposite. And so just because you say, well, that was a planned deviation, doesn't necessarily mean that that's acceptable. You still need to investigate, and to plan to deviate, that sounds weird. So, your SOPs need to be written correctly. They need to be based on specific regulations, and they need to be reviewed by senior quality officials in your department. So just because you have something in a written procedure doesn't necessarily mean that what's in the written procedure is accurate.
Okay, I believe those are our questions. So thanks everyone for joining us, and thank you, Brian, for a very informative webinar. We did record this, so if you would like to review it in the future, we expect it to be up on the website within a few days. Thanks everyone again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.